Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be here today and introduce the SGS webinar for the Modernization of Cosmetic Regulations Act, MoCRA, and what does that mean for you? My name is Lawrence Muchnick. I am the National Sales Manager for Cosmetic and Personal Care Division in the U.S. Your speaker today is John Gawlak. John is our Technical Manager for Pharma, Cosmetics, and Personal Care in North America. Okay, as you can see here, SGS is the world's leading inspection, verification, testing, and certification company with over 97,000 employees in 2,650 locations around the world and expertise across 11 global industry sectors. We provide assistance and expertise with global support and services that cater to all industries. We are the largest provider of audits, certification, training, and advisory services. We have the ability to turn your needs into comprehensive solutions with the consistent service delivery via our worldwide network and global footprint. Okay, and we have highly experienced quality and regulatory experts in the cosmetic certification area, ready to offer you training from our SGS Academy. At the end of our presentation, we'll have a link to access SGS Academy, and there will also be a Q&A at the end. So please put any questions you have in the chat box so we can discuss at the end of the presentation. Thank you for joining us today, and I'm going to turn it over to John.
All right, welcome, folks. Again, my name is John Gawlak. I'm the Technical Manager for SGS North America. I also conduct audits with my team across North America and globally. And we're here today to talk about the Modernization of Cosmetic Registration Act. As folks may or may not be aware, but the esteemed senator from California, Feinstein, had been for 10 years trying to get a Modernization Act passed for the cosmetics industry, similar to what was passed in the past for modernization of the medical device world, Food Safety Modernization Act, and the Drug Supply Chain Security Modernization Act that have occurred over the last few years. Now, MoCRA is upon us. So today we want to go through a quick introduction about MoCRA. What is it? What is the implementation timeline coming out of the law? What are the implications for your company? How is SGS able to help your company prepare for and be ready for the MoCRA requirements? And then a quick questions and answer session at the end. So first of all, I'd like to take a quick survey. So how many people have heard of MoCRA prior to signing up for this live webinar? So if you take a second here and select the box yes or no, we can do a live survey, see what's happening. And I do appreciate participating in the live survey. All right, I think we've given enough time. So 80% of you have heard of MoCRA. That's a wonderful thing. That means the FDA and the industry is getting the word out about MoCRA. And for the 20% of you who have not heard of it before, I'm glad you joined us. So you can start learning about MoCRA and helping to prepare your companies going forward. So a little bit of background and introduction. As we're aware, because we all come out of the cosmetic industries, consumers use cosmetic products every day. Makeup, nail polishes, shaving cream, grooming products, perfumes, face and body cleanser, hair products, moisturizers, and other skincare products all fall under cosmetic regulations. And a lot of people in the United States use these products every day. So in December of 2022, the Modernization of the Cosmetic Regulations Act of 2022, or MoCRA, was passed and signed into law. It was part of the last big omnibus spending bill that occurred. This new law provides significant expansion of the FDA's authority over the cosmetic industry. The design is to help ensure and improve the safety of the cosmetic products that are marketed in the United States. Some of you may be aware of the previous program, which was called the Voluntary Cosmetic Registration Program, or the VCRP. Some companies voluntarily registered their companies. Other companies chose not to register their companies. It was part of the FDA initiative to try and understand what cosmetic manufacturers were out there, what ingredients they were using to help put together risk curves around those companies so they could help decide the level of scrutiny that the FDA needed to have around the cosmetic industry. As part of the MoCRA regulations, the FDA on March 27, 2023, stopped accepting and processing submissions into the Voluntary Cosmetic Registration Program. And they announced that the data in the VCRP will not be transferred into the new system. So as we go through this, you're going to learn a little bit about what the requirements are. But the big thing here is if your company was VCRP and part of the program, that's great. It was wonderful you did it, but it's not going to help you as far as the MoCRA requirements go because the data is not going to be moved from that system into the new system. So real quick, we're going to go over some key terms that the FDA felt was important for everybody to know about going into the discussion around MoCRA. So as everybody's aware, and if you're not aware, the FDA determines that a cosmetic product is a preparation of cosmetic ingredients with a qualitatively and quantitatively set composition for use in a finished product. The responsible person in the cosmetic industry could be the manufacturer, the packager, distributor of the cosmetic product, and it's based upon whose name appears on the label of the product. So basically, who's the brand that owns the product? If you're a cosmetic manufacturer, you may not actually be the responsible person. It may be the customer that you buy from, or that buys the product from you, or has you manufacture the product. If you are the manufacturer and the distributor and the brand owner, then you would be the responsible person. So we have some examples later on in the presentation to help people understand that a little more. The FDA wanted to make sure people understood what they mean by a facility. So any establishment, including an establishment of an importer, that manufactures or processes cosmetic products to be distributed in the United States is what they consider to be a facility. There are some certain things where they carved out certain aspects of beauty shops and salons and certain retailers, hospitals, public health agencies, some trade show activities, and certain research and testing facilities where they're not included in the MoCRA requirements as a definition of a facility. Establishments that solely perform one or more of the following with respect to the cosmetic products, if they're just doing labeling, relabeling, packaging, repackaging, or holding a distribution, they are not considered a facility under the MoCRA Act. Under the MoCRA Act, the facilities that they're worried about are the facilities that actually compound or manufacture the bulk product. They may also do filling and packaging, but they may not. They're focusing right now, MoCRA, on the bulk manufacturers. Just so that we're all on the same page for an adverse event. An adverse event is any health-related event associated with the use of cosmetic products that is adverse. Why FDA phrased it that way? Not quite sure, but when something isn't as expected, it's considered adverse. So a serious adverse event is an adverse event that results in death or a life-threatening experience, inpatient hospitalization, persistent or significant disability or incapacity, a congenital anomaly or birth defect, causes an infection, a significant disfigurement, including serious and persistent rashes, second or third degree burns, significant hair loss, or persistent or significant alteration of appearance, other than as intended under that condition of use, that are customary and usual, or requires based on a reasonable medical judgment a medical or surgical intervention to prevent an outcome described in Section A above. So we will get into why this is important, but I want to make sure everybody understands what the definition of a serious adverse event is. Records inspection. So MoCRA amends the FDA. So actually getting into the provisions of the Act itself now. We went over the definitions. We went over a little bit of the background. Now we're going to get into the actual guts of what the provisions of the Act say. So the Act says records inspection. So MoCRA amends the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act that was originally written in 1938 to provide that FDA inspections of facilities that manufacture or process cosmetics shall extend to certain records and information, such as adverse event report information, and when the applicable standard for records inspections applies. So something that immediately took effect coming out of the gate, cosmetic manufacturers now have to include in their customer complaint evaluation processes, was there an adverse event that occurred? You have to collect the information on adverse events, maintain that information for FDA inspections to review about adverse events, and then there are additional requirements which will come up on around serious adverse events in which you have to do. So the FDA also addressed records access as part of the update to the Congress put it into the update. So the FDA has a reasonable belief that a cosmetic product, including an ingredient in such product, is likely to be adulterated such that the use or exposure to the product presents a threat of serious adverse health consequences or death to humans. The FDA can access and copy certain records related to the cosmetic product, including safety records for the products around those adverse events. So what they did here is they have the record access and they have the records inspection. They updated the Food and Drug and Cosmetic Act that said that now the FDA has the right to look at, and you have to provide access to, the records around the adverse event. As they stated in the previous part with records access, they want to have access to safety information. So one of the provisions of the Act that takes effect later this year is cosmetic companies, the responsible person has to have safety substantiation data available. So the person responsible is required to ensure and maintain records supporting adequate substantiation of the safety of their product. So this is going to be an interesting thing that has to occur this year. The cosmetic industry has to make sure they have all this information. This information could come from cosmetic ingredient manufacturers. It could come from cosmetic contract manufacturing houses. It could come from the responsible companies that own the product. It could come through safety assessments, safety testing that has been performed, historical use of the product, but that data has to be available to substantiate your product is safe on the market. This is in response to, over the history of the last 10, 20 years, of all of the reports the FDA has received about product safety concerns with cosmetic and personal care products. So here's a question. Do you think your organization is ready to be able to respond to an FDA question about safety substantiation? So if you could take a moment and respond to the question. All right, here we go. Let's see what you said. So 51.5% of you said, yes, you think you are. 24.2% of you said no. And 24.2% of you also said do not know. With the fact that 51% said yes, that leaves a lot of the people with a lot of questions that they need to answer at their companies to make sure that they have this information in place. And even if you did say yes, I highly suggest that you do double check, that your companies double check and make sure that you do have all the data that everybody thinks they have available, and that it's available to quickly be able to respond to an FDA request. So thank you for answering that question. So as we move along in the provisions, there is now a requirement. So we went over what an adverse event was. We went over the definition of a serious adverse event. So the responsible person that owns the product is required to report serious adverse events associated with the use of cosmetic products in the United States to the FDA within 15 business days after receiving a report of such an event. The responsible person must also provide certain information, such as new medical information received within 1 year of the initial report. The FDA will also have access to adverse event reports during an inspection. Did I do that wrong? Did I put the same information in twice? I do apologize. No, I didn't. I didn't click the button. I apologize. Here we go. Next slide, provisions. Registration and product listing. We talked about the fact that the voluntary cosmetic registration program has been shut down. Part of the MoCRA provisions is at the end of the first year, every manufacturing company of cosmetics is going to have to register their facilities with the FDA and then renew that registration every 2 years. The FDA has not launched the new system they're developing yet. But when they launch their new system, then every cosmetic manufacturing company that sells products and takes products to the U.S. market is going to have to register their facility by the end of the year. The FDA also has the authority to suspend a facility's registration now if the agency determines that a cosmetic product manufactured or processed has a probability of causing serious adverse health consequences or death to humans, and the agency has a reasonable belief that other products manufactured or processed by the facility may be similarly affected because of a failure that cannot be isolated to a product or products, or is sufficiently pervasive to raise concerns about other products manufactured in the facility. So the FDA now has that authority that you have to be registered to sell, and they can pull your registration if they deem it's appropriate to pull your registration. Let me go back here. If your registration has been pulled, any products you have at market would be considered adulterated products and would have to come off the market. So not only do you have to register your manufacturing sites, now, it's a prohibitive act to distribute or sell or deliver into commerce in the United States cosmetic products from a facility with a suspended registration. In addition, the responsible person for each listed marketed cosmetic product is going to have to register that product and provide any updates to that product through this registration system. So those of you that are familiar with the over-the-counter product registration process, the indication from the FDA is they're developing a system similar to that. And the system they're developing is going to be similar to the FDA drug product registration system. But we're waiting to see what the FDA actually puts out there for us to use. So this also is going to be a little tricky about the marketed cosmetic products, because sometimes the contract manufacturer owns the rights to the formulation, but the person on the label is a different person. So exactly how all of this registration is going to work and who has to share what information with whom and all of this fun stuff is still all to be figured out in the next 6 months or so. So stay tuned to the FDA and us, and we'll keep you informed and be able to help you get through this interesting time, shall we call it. So another survey for you real quick. Is your organization prepared for site and product registration? And I should say and/or product registration. So if you take a couple seconds to answer this question for me, that'd be great. All right, let's see where we're at. Here we go. So 65% said yes, they're ready. 17.2% said no, and 17.2% said I don't know. So I think most companies are prepared because they know what's in their formulations. We just don't know how we're going to have to submit it. Is it going to be submitted as a product family with a bunch of different SKU for packaging sizes? Or is it going to have to be submitted for each SKU? We're still waiting to see the answer. But I think a lot of the companies already taken to heart this requirement and starting to figure out what they need to have and do when they get there. A lot of you folks have been doing this before for your sunscreens and acne products that you make. So should not be too difficult, but let's make sure everybody's prepared. So another one of the provisions, the FDA now has mandatory recall authority, just like they do for medical devices, food, and pharmaceuticals. The cosmetic industry, up until this act being passed, was a voluntary process for recalls. If the FDA requested you to recall, you could agree or disagree. If you disagreed and the FDA wanted it to happen, they had to go to court to make it happen. Now the FDA doesn't have to go to court, and they don't have to have you agree. You just have to do it if they tell you that they want your product recalled. So the FDA determines that there's a reasonable probability that a cosmetic product is adulterated or misbranded, and use of or exposure to the cosmetic will cause serious adverse health consequences or death. The FDA has the authority to order a mandatory recall if the responsible person refuses to do so voluntarily. There are some provisions coming for labeling for professional use, and there's going to be certain labeling requirements on the cosmetic products that are intended to be used only by licensed professionals. Those specific requirements haven't been detailed yet by the FDA, but when they are, we will figure out how to implement those. The labeling requirements will now include in the future contact information. It's going to require cosmetic product labels to include certain contact information throughout which the responsible person can receive adverse event reports. Contact information must include domestic address, telephone number, or an electronic contact information, which may include a website. A lot of you guys already have that on your labels already, but it is now an official requirement coming in the future. There will be some labeling requirements about fragrance allergen rules. The FDA is to develop regulations to identify fragrance allergens that must be disclosed on cosmetic labels, taking into consideration international, state, and local allergen disclosure requirements. as they develop these rules. And the really big one that I don't know how many people got to attend the last week's meeting, but the FDA does have to present or establish GMP rules that are consistent to the extent practical and appropriate with the national and international standards and intended to ensure cosmetic products are not adulterated. And this may include records inspections to evaluate compliance with GMPs. So the FDA has a target date, the end of 2024, to issue the draft guidance, and the end of 2025 to issue what the final GMP rules are going to be. The FDA did have a meeting last week where they did a 6-hour listening session to the agency, or the agency did a 6-hour listening to the industry to collect feedback on what the industry would like to see from a cosmetic GMP requirements. And I will cover a little later in the presentation that there is time to submit comments against the docket that meeting was held against. So we'll pay attention to what's coming. So the question is, how many people think 2276 is the direction the FDA is going to go for GMPs? I'll give you a couple minutes to answer this question. Not minutes, seconds, sorry. All right, 71% feel and believe like I do that 2276 is the direction the FDA is going to go. Is there a potential the FDA may force ISO to do an update? There's a potential there. 14% said no, the FDA is going to go some other direction, and 14% said not sure what direction the FDA is going to go. So we'll see. We'll see what the FDA has to say. So there is also new testing methods requirements for detecting asbestos in talc-containing products. The FDA has to develop regulations to establish and standardize required testing for detecting and identifying asbestos in talc-containing cosmetic products. And the FDA does also have to issue a report, and there's a requirement of this act to summarize an assessment of the safety and use of per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFASs, in the cosmetic products. So this I stole directly from the FDA presentation that their pre-recorded webinar they did. The adverse event reporting is something that had to take effect immediately. So it's a solid blue line. You can see good manufacturing practices. They really have to do their finalization work in 2025 because they got to have the draft out at the end of 2024. Registration and product listings take effect at the end of this year. Safety substantiation has to be ready by the end of this year. The labeling of fragrance allergens, they have to have their draft out. I think it's the middle of 2024, and their finalization in early 2025, if I remember correctly. And then labeling contact information has to be in effect. They have to have the draft guidance out and in effect for 2025. Professional use has to be the end of this year, going into next year. Mandatory recall authority, it takes effect immediately. Testing for the asbestos-containing talc, that's something they're working on, has to be done within the 3-year program. And the report for the PAFS in cosmetics has to occur by the end of 2025. So the whole Cosmetic Act, the Modernization of Cosmetic Regulations Act, has a 3-year cycle for everything to be implemented by. So real quick, just to give you a real quick summary of provisions. FDA inspection, adverse events, ASAP. Safety substantiation, the end of this year. Serious adverse event reporting, the end of 2023. Site registration, the product listing registrations, end of 2023. The mandatory recalls immediately. Labeling for professional use, contact information is the end of 2023 is when they're supposed to have the draft documents out. Fragrance rules, the end of 2024 for the final rule. GMPs, 24 for proposed rule, 25 final rule. Test methods, the end of June for the final guidance, 24. And the end of 24 is the final rule for PFASs in cosmetics. So real quick, we put together some examples for you around who has to register their facility based upon, and who needs to do product listings based upon. So if a branded company A contracts with a manufacturing company B and a filling company C, branded company A, of course, has to do the product listings. Manufacturing company B has to do a facility registration. And the filling company, if you're doing filling, we believe facility registration has to occur for filling, but not for packaging. We're waiting to make sure in the final, and when they issue the final guidance on that, that's what they say. But we believe manufacturing, filling, not packaging. Number two, if the branded company A contract with company B for manufacturing and filling and company C for packaging, company A does the product listing, company B does the facility registration, company C does not required to register. Example 3, branded company A contracts with company B for all the activities. Branded company A has to do product listings, company B has to do facility registrations. And in the last example, if your company markets, manufactures, fills, and packaging, you need to do both. All right. Next steps, which are very important to us. The FDA is in the process of developing the new system for the submissions and product registrations, and also for the site registrations. And there was a public meeting held last week, June 1st, and the deadline to submit comments is July 3rd, 2023. And I will show you in the next slide or two where you can go to at the FDA in order to get to the point where you can submit comments about GMPs. So if you want to stay active, here's the website. MoCRA FDA is a good Google search. It'll take you, pull up right to this website. And there is an inquiries about MoCRA that can be directed to the government. They're turning the questions around the best they can. I submitted a question, it took them about 6 weeks, and they got an answer to me. But if you go to this website, there's a link to the June 1st meeting. From that link, there's a link to where you can submit to the docket for the response, if you want to submit a white paper or response to that. All right, so that's the guts of what's going on with MoCRA. The next part here is where we're going to talk about how SGS could help you if you're so interested. One of the things that SGS is very proud of, we have this SGS Digicomply system. It's a great system that contains a bunch of regulatory information from globally around the world for a lot of different product lines, from fabrics to furniture to tennis shoes to cosmetics to drugs, food, automobiles, airplanes, covers a lot of topics. And it does cost money to join, but one of the things that they're just getting ready to launch today is the fact that there are 4 new things in Congress to strengthen the MoCRA registration. I don't know exactly what all those things are. I just found out about them today. So Digicomply is going to have that. That's launching. That system will have that information for you if you're interested. So what SGS is willing to offer to help you guys out if you need, we're willing to give training to your companies on MoCRA. It can be off-site or on-site, about a 2-hour class. We're willing to also come in and give you a gap assessment based on against adverse events, your systems for adverse events reporting, your systems around safety substantiation, things like that. We can come in and with training, and it'd be about 2 hours of training. Without training, it might be 4 hours plus reporting time. Established clients, we prefer to be on site tied to an audit. Not established clients, remote is an acceptable process. And again, SGS offers a bunch of things to help folks. If you're not familiar with 22716 or people at your site need it, we offer training in 22716 GMPs. We offer certification processes, as you're aware, for 22716, 9001. And for those cosmetic ingredient manufacturers, we also offer the FC, or the European Federation for Cosmetic Ingredient GMP standards. We can also help your companies out with second-party audits, raw materials, packaging components, contract lab audits. We offer advisory services around helping you set up an adverse event system, helping you improve your GMPs or quality management system, helping you prepare recall programs and mock recall programs if you need those. We also offer some desktop services to our life sciences laboratory where we can help with toxicological risk assessments as part of your safety substantiation. We offer cosmetic label review to make sure that you're meeting the most frequent requirements of MoCRA, ingredient review to protect against prohibited products and restrictions, product claim reviews as well we offer through our life sciences divisions. We offer chemical testing, stability testing, microscopy testing as well to help support you guys through our laboratory sciences division. We also can help with safety substantiation because we do clinical testing with dermal patch safety and tolerability, and clinical safety and tolerability testing as well if you guys need to do that to help strengthen your safety substantiation program. All right, I tried to get through that sales pitch as quick as I could. I know you were more worried and more important about what the act actually says and what's going on in the industry. But, you know, when we do these free webinars, we also try to give you that sales pitch to get you on the hook because that's how we make our money. But I appreciate you sticking around and listening to that part. Hand it back over to Larry. Larry's going to walk you through what SGS offers as far as upcoming courses and wrap up this presentation for us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. Good job on that. So as you can see here, this is our training sector here where we provide, training courses for ISO 22716. This is all through SGS Academy. We have classes in June, August, October. We will also be providing a link to this after our webinar. This will have a link to all of our training classes around the space, and it will also include a recorded session of today's webinar, along with other additional resources for you to review. I do see that we have quite a few questions here, so I'm going to go and shoot them off to John. This way we could field them and get those answered. I'm going to start with the first one here for ISO 22716. John, they want to know what's the difference between a pre-audit and a stage 1 and stage 2?
Okay. A pre-audit is where we come in when you're just wanting to know where you're at. We give you a snapshot in time of where your system is in regard to the standard. We give you a list of things that could cause you problems as far as being critical, major, or minor, that could cause you problems if the FDA were to show up or cause you problems if you went through the certification cycle. The advantages of a pre-audit versus going directly into the stage 1 to stage 2 process is if we identify something that's going to take time to be fixed, it doesn't impact your certification clock. And what I mean by a certification clock is with stage 1 audit, we come in, we do a procedure review to make sure you got all your procedures in place to be compliant. Once we do that procedures review, stage 1, you have 6 months to complete your stage 2 audit, which is where we come in and look at all your records to make sure you followed your procedures and make sure you were compliant to the standard. At that point, if you find an issue at stage 1 that's going to take more than 6 months to fix, then if you go past 6 months, we got to start over with another stage 1 audit, which costs you more money in the long run. So the advantage of a pre-approval audit is you find out if you have an issue up front, and it gives you time to plan and fix before you start your clock for certification. It comes down to how strong do you think your system is and where you're at as far as risk versus reward. Doing a pre-audit does impact the amount of time it takes to get through the certification process, but it also helps prevent having to retread back through a stage one if there's an issue. Next question.
Amen to that. I could say, you know, coming from a sales standpoint here within the company, 99.9% of my quotes, I get requests for this pre-audit. It's just going to give you peace of mind. By the time that you get into that stage one and stage two, you're comfortable with the real McCoy once you start facing that. And it's definitely a big recommendation on our side for that pre-audit. Thank you, John. So we have a few more questions here. Let's see here. Which website is used to register the facility with the FDA for cosmetics?
That has not been published yet by the FDA. As soon as the FDA publishes that, SGS will make sure to communicate that out to all the people we know. And the FDA will also be making that published, and I'm sure it'll go across LinkedIn. But they have not opened that website yet to actually register the facilities.
Great, thank you. We have another question here from Patrice. How is MoCRA affecting ingredient manufacturers?
As for the ingredient manufacturers, MoCRA does not affect them directly. It will affect them indirectly. Whatever the FDA decides to do on GMPs, one of the things I'm sure they're going to include is vendor qualification programs and making sure that the cosmetic manufacturers are controlling their vendors appropriately and making sure that they meet the appropriate GMP requirements for the materials they're making. So the amount of GMPs that may be held accountable at the cosmetic ingredient manufacturers is probably going to go up. And also, cosmetic companies are going to try to reach out to the ingredient manufacturers to get as much safety information as they can from them so they don't have to spend as much money on the safety substantiation, because the more that's already available that they can get out of their suppliers, the less they have to do on their end that they have to pay for. Hopefully that helps answer that question.
Great, thanks, John. We have another one coming here from Summer, and I could answer this question. What is needed to start the quoting process? And Summer, I could tell you that pretty much what we do for an ISO 22716, we provide you a questionnaire and a W-9. Pretty much once that's filled out, that gets sent back to me. I start the quoting process. We go through an approval process from there. Typically, it takes about a 3 to 5 business day lead time for me to have an approved and ready proposal to send out to you. I could say with, like, let's say if we're doing like a pre-audit in a stage 1 and stage 2, your pre-audit is optional, so it's not a mandatory cost. Definitely, again, highly recommended, but that line item will be there for you and your team to review. Once you're ready to move forward, you would sign the proposal. We again go through an approval process, and then we get you into scheduling. So one of our key account managers will reach out to you and be able to set up a time where an auditor like John or any member of his team will come visit and do what they have to do on the audit side. So I hope that answers your question there, Summer. Okay, we have another question here from Brandon. What are all the elements for safety of products? Does this mean all the real-time and accelerated stability tests must be completed and passing before introducing a product to the market, John?
All right. We don't know exactly what the FDA is expecting. Part of that will come out through their notifications, their guidance documents that they're going to issue. We're assuming it's going to follow more along the drug regs where you have to have 6 months of accelerated stability to support your shelf life, but we're not sure yet. The biggest thing around safety, they want you to have a package right now, but they haven't detailed exactly what they're looking for in the package. We don't know if it's going to be trial and error that as they go through and they don't like them, they write 483s and warning letters, and that's what drives the industry in the direction they want to go, or if they're going to issue draft guidance documents to help cosmetic manufacturers head in the direction that they need to go. As with a lot of things in MoCRA, we don't have all the answers yet from the agency.
Great. Thank you, John. Another question coming from Kyle. If we manufacture cosmetic products for our private label customers, do we have to register our facility and products? And second part to that question, the customer's name is on the label. We take the bulk chemical and repackage it into smaller bottles for our customers.
Yes, you will have to register as a manufacturing site. We're not quite sure yet how that's going to work with private label customers, whether the agency is going to have a joint registration or the customer is going to have to register it with your information, or if the agency is going to allow you to file equivalent to like a drug master file, that you file that and then your customer references it. We're not quite sure how that's going to happen yet. We're waiting to hear. If you take a bulk chemical and repackage it into smaller bottles for your customer, you're doing a filling operation into the smaller bottles. We believe filling operators are going to have to register, but relabelers and repackagers will not. So I'm not sure yet. We're going to have to wait and see on that one.
Great question indeed. Okay, we have another one here from a manufacturer. If we manufacture our own products for our own brand, do we have to do both facility and product listings?
Yes.
Fantastic.
They're two different things.
Okay, we have another one here from Mary Beth. Packaging company not required to register as a facility. Does that mean the company that prints the packaging does not need to register, or the site is putting the filled cosmetic into packaging does not need to register?
If you manufacture your own product, okay. Make sure I'm reading the right question here.
Yeah, from Mary Beth.
From Mary Beth, okay. Packaging companies do not have to register even if they're putting labeling on the packaging. Or people that print the labels don't have to register. If you're putting the product in the bottle, we believe you're going to have to register, but we don't know that for 100% for sure. We know manufacturing sites do, and we know packagers and repackagers don't. In the cosmetic industry, packaging and repackaging is not considered filling. Filling is normally considered with the manufacturing operation. So we believe it's going to have to register, but we're waiting for the FDA to confirm that.
Okay, thank you, John. Another good question here from Elizabeth. Are we going to register only the formulas?
We don't know yet. We don't know if you're going to register the formulas and then reference the packaging sizes or configurations, or if you're going to have to register each packaging configuration. We don't know yet. We think it's going to be similar to OTC products and drug products, that you register the formula with the different packaging configurations. So for, let's say for a sunscreen product, an OTC, you register the formula and you put it in a 5 ml tube or a 30 ml tube and a 20 ounce bottle and a 50 ounce bottle. You register the formulation and you reference your packaging configuration. We think that's how it's going to be. We don't know for sure.
Okay. And we have another question from Brad. Actually, you and I came across this just a few weeks ago. We are a contract packager of wipes and already registered with the FDA for medical device. Are we exempt from this new registration?
Depends on how much your dollar value sales are. If you're a small business with less than $1 million in sales, yes, you're exempt. If you're not a small business and you have more than $1 million in sales, then no, you're not exempt and you have to register as a cosmetic manufacturer. The same goes for if you're already an OTC manufacturer you're going to have to register as a cosmetic manufacturer. Just like if you're a food manufacturer, if you manufacture for the food industry and the pharma industry, you have to register both for food, pharma, and then you'd have to register for cosmetic as well.
Okay.
Or medical device. Each one has its own registration program.
Okay, fantastic. And we have another question here from Kathy. As a private label supplier, I understand GMP to be a list of rules that you follow. Will we need to have an actual certification for GMP with this program?
A private label supplier.
Yes.
If you are if you're making products for another company to put their name on, yes, you'll have to register as a GMP manufacturer. Do you have to have a certification? The FDA doesn't require certification at this point. But like on the medical device side, you can now be certified to ISO 1345 for medical devices, or you can claim to follow the FDA 21 CFR 820. So we're not quite sure how the FDA is going to approach it if they choose ISO 22716. If you are just to make sure I get the question right, if you are a label manufacturer where you're making labels, no, you don't have to have a certification, but having a certification to something like ISO 15378 for medicinal packaging would be a good thing to help your customers with their supplier approval programs. So I wanted to make sure I covered both sides to understand what private label actually meant for you.
Okay, thanks, John. Have a question here from Elizabeth, and I think that you covered this in a couple questions back, but do we need to register every SKU or just the formula?
We don't know yet. We don't know yet. That's the best answer I have for you. There was a question about exemption. The criteria to get an exemption, you have to be a small business, less than $1 million a year in sales.
Great. Okay. Then we have another question here from Jasenia or Janessa. Will personal care, baby or adult wipes be affected by MoCRA? So it's another question on this.
Yes, they will, because they're considered a cosmetic product by the FDA under the Cosmetic Registration Act.
Fantastic. If your facility is okay, yep. We're having some duplicates here, but it's important that everybody gets their question answered. We have a few more minutes left here. Coming down to the last couple questions. If your facility is registered as an OTC manufacturer, will you have to have an additional registration for the same facility for cosmetics?
Yes, you will.
Okay. Good. And the last question here, John, from Tanya. Can you explain more regarding your example number 4, which goes into brand registration?
Okay. On example number 4, if you're the company that owns the brand, manufactures the product, fills and packages and distributes the product, then you are going to be responsible for registering your manufacturing site and your product registration as well, is what was meant by that example.
Got it. So Tanya came back with another question here. Would MoCRA apply to adhesive gems, accessories, or it applies to formulations?
Adhesive gems, accessories. Accessories fall under cosmetics, and if you have adhesive gems, then you are going to have to follow MoCRA around safety substantiation and GMPs and all that fun stuff, yes.
Okay.
The question about registration numbers going on the labels, I'm going to assume that no, because drug product registrations don't go on the labels. They put a drug product code on the label, but they don't put the registration number on the label. So I'm going to assume no, but you never know.
Gotcha. Okay.
The brand uses foreign manufacturers. The foreign manufacturer has to register as a manufacturing site. If it's your label on the product, then you have to register the product. And I don't know if it requires a U.S. agent or not. We'll have to wait and see.
Mm-hmm. John, our last question here that just came in from Linda. If you are a cosmetic company in the U.S. but use a contract manufacturer in Canada, what is the responsibility and will they have to be registered?
They have to register and they have to follow the U.S. GMPs, whatever those turn out to be.
Fantastic. Okay. Got another question coming in here. I am a bit confused. We manufacture, fill, and sell our own products, but we make less than 1 million sales annually. So I do not have to register my facility and products?
You do not. It's highly recommended that you do, but you do not have to.
Good. I hope that helps, Jennifer. And if any more questions come up, we do have our email addresses. You could certainly reach me, lawrence.muchnick@sgs.com. We'll be happy to answer any questions, jump on a discovery call, learn more about your business and how SGS can help. Once again, our quoting process is pretty simple. I send over a quick questionnaire or brief, and we basically, you provide all your information, and I'll be able to provide a quote to you in a proposal within 3 to 5 business days. It does take quite a couple days here just for us to approve it on our end. But other than that, we look forward to working with you. Look, we have another one question. Where are we located? Kathy, we are a global company. I could say that John and I work out of the New Jersey corporate office, and pretty much we facilitate all the United States for auditing.
And Canada.
Oh, and Canada. That's right. Okay. Fantastic. Okay. So we're just wrapping up here. We have like 1 minute to go. I want to thank everybody for joining our MoCRA call today. We have a lot more coming up within the cosmetic industry. And at the end of next month, we have an ESG webinar, and hope everybody could attend that. We have a lot of really great content for you. Other than that, I want to thank you very much again for joining. We will send you an email within today or possibly by end of day tomorrow with all this great content, our recorded webinar. And again, we look forward to connecting with you and helping you through this process. Thanks again and have a great day.